rocked the capital earlier today. Fighting between the Sudanese army and paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces raged for a third day, ripping apart hopes for a peaceful transition to civilian rule. Clashes first erupted Saturday between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, with each side blaming one another for starting the fight. Eyewitnesses in Khartoum told newsmen that they heard mortars and artillery in the early hours of the morning, with the fighting intensifying after dawn prayers in the direction of Khartoum International Airport and Sudanese army garrison site. The military has been in charge of Sudan since a 2021 coup that derailed the country's path to democracy. And we'll have more in the following reports.
Fierce fighting has continued in Sudan's capital despite a temporary ceasefire on the second day of battles to address humanitarian needs, including the evacuation of the wounded. Almost 100 civilians have died during this round of violence, which began on Saturday. Former Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has called for a ceasefire.
بصفة المواطن السوداني الذي يشفق على بلاده وأهلها.
Peace remains the only feasible choice for the people of Sudan to avoid plunging the country into a civil war. Therefore, I call for an immediate ceasefire and to reach an agreement which leads to a permanent cessation of hostilities.
The clashes are part of a power struggle between General Abdel Fattah Burhan, the commander of armed forces, and General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the Rapid Support Forces group. The two generals are former allies who jointly orchestrated an October 2021 military coup that derailed Sudan's short-lived transition to democracy. The violence continued on Monday morning with the deserted streets of Khartoum filled with the smell of gunpowder after explosions and gunfire rang out throughout the night. Men in fatigues, weapons in hand, were seen walking through the streets empty of civilians, and whilst columns of smoke has been rising since Saturday from the city center where the main institutions of power are located. Witnesses also reported artillery fire in Kassala, in the country's coastal east. The conflict has been brewing for weeks, preventing any political solution in a country that has been trying since 2019 to organize its first free elections after 30 years of military dictatorship. Impossible as it is to know which force is holding what, the RSF announced that it had taken the airport in a few hours on Saturday, but the army has denied this. The RSF also claimed to be holding the presidential palace. The army denies this and said it was holding the headquarters of its general staff, one of the main power complexes in Khartoum.
The international community has called for calm in the ongoing fighting in Sudan. The chairman of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, will travel immediately to Sudan to engage the parties towards a ceasefire. Expressing his deep concern about the situation, the African Union also called on the forces of the two generals in charge of Sudan to protect civilians in a statement issued after an emergency meeting of the organization's Peace and Security Council on Sunday. Speaking from Japan, the U.S. Secretary of State called for a ceasefire.
Very closely on the situation in Sudan. We've also been in close touch with partners in the Arab world, in Africa, in international organizations. There is a shared deep concern about the fighting, the violence that's going on in Sudan, the threat that that poses to civilians, that it poses to the Sudanese nation, and potentially poses even to the region. There's also a very strongly shared view about the need for Generals Burhan and Hamedi to ensure the protection of civilians and non-combatants, as well as people from third countries, including our personnel who are located in Sudan. And also a strongly held view, again, across all of our partners on the need for an immediate ceasefire and a return to talks. Talks that were very promising in putting Sudan on the path to a full transition to civilian-led government.
The World Health Organization has also warned that several of the capital's 9 hospitals receiving injured civilians have run out of blood transfusion equipment, intravenous fluids, and other vital equipments.